What is up, IDP Army? It's your man, Jordan Rains, back again with another episode of the IDP Army podcast. I hope to find you all well today. We have made it through the NFL draft, and it is Monday, May 3rd, so you're probably kicking off your rookie drafts. Today, I have a special guest with me today, a guy I really respect, a guy who he's in the trenches. He's playing in leagues just like us. He's making money just like us. He's making decisions just like us. And he's here to help us out with some of these rookie running backs as well as just running backs in general. So give him a big welcome here, IDP Army. I got my man Michael Liu with me today. How you doing, Mike?
What up, man? I'm good. It's good to hop on live with you. Thanks for having me on the show. We've gone back and forth, on Twitter, good stuff, bad stuff, fun stuff, all the good shit, quite a few times. So it's always cool to hop on live and chop it up live with people. If I'm apologize to your viewers in advance if my energy is a little bit lower today. I'm running on not too much sleep after grinding it out last night, trying to get these new rankings out to folks. But I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to talk football. It's always a good time, and let's get this shit on the road.
Yes, sir. We're happy to have you with us. Like I said, guys, we are going to be talking running backs today. If you've been paying attention to the last few series we've been going by positions, kind of talking rankings, kind of talking some strategy stuff, some values and all that. We hit the meat of it right now, and we really hit it on the day that it really matters most. So we're talking rookie running backs, and let's just go ahead and get right to it. So we have Najee Harris, we have Travis Etienne, we have Javonte Williams. Coming into this last week, that was essentially 1, 2, and 3 consensus. Was that your 1, 2, and 3?
Yep.
Okay, so now that things have happened, is there been any change at all in these top 3 for you?
Not like relative to each other. I'd say that there's been some changes in terms of how I value them relative to other players like veterans and maybe potentially other rookies. But if you're just looking at positional, it's 1, 2, 3. Because those are the 3 good players, and they went in and got the draft capital that we needed them to get, and so there's really nothing more to it than that.
Yeah. So all right, Travis, or let's go Najee Harris. Okay, he lands on the Steelers. They have an awesome what do you want to call it, reputation for having a workhorse back, a bell cow back. It's one of the backfields where we can bank on that more often than not, that if the guy's healthy, he's going to get all the touches. That's premium. We get Najee Harris. Most people's consensus 1 there. Where should he be taken in rookie drafts? So let's just set the table. Let's call it super flex. Let's call it tight end premium. What pick should he be going in your mind, just in a vacuum?
I think in that, for me personally, I would say like in that 1.0, call it 1.03 to 1.05 range. It just really depends on what you need. I think 1.01 is probably Trevor Lawrence, right? Even though it seems to be some people drawing back. I think people just get tired of the same things. They just change to change. But for me, I think Trevor Lawrence is still 1.01. And then I think Trey Lance is 1.02. Trey Lance or Justin Fields can both have that case. I think they're very close. And then, I have Jamar Chase, who I think is still I would have ahead of Najee, just even though like with the landing spot and everything, I think Jamar Chase just has a bulletproof type of profile. Shout out to DFB Encounter there. And then also he just, landed in a good spot. It's going to be a high passing volume, reunited with his college quarterback, extremely high draft capital. And then after that, it's between Najee and like Kyle Pitts. And depending on how heavy the tight end premium scoring is, I could make a case for Kyle Pitts as well if it's like a 2x. But if not, I think you kind of got to lean Najee because, like you said, the volume just going to be there.
All right, top 5. We know we can count on the volume with Pittsburgh. Now, I know the trendy thing to do this last week was to immediately dunk on the Steelers O-line. Do you have it? I don't have any real concerns. Look, Saquon ran behind a crappy O-line, and he was fine. It's a volume game, and when you can get the volume, everything else is noise in my mind. So do you have any concerns with this O-line being an issue narrative for Najee Harris, or is that literally just a non-factor for you?
Well, first of all, I don't think he's Saquon, so there's only one of those. So I wouldn't really go there. But what I will say is I've never thought that the Steelers was like this dream landing spot. I thought it was a good landing spot. I thought they'd get decent volume. It'd be like an okay offense. But offensive line matters, obviously. I think, I subscribe to more so to the running backs don't matter, except not that extreme. I think running backs do matter. They just matter less than some of the other positions. But I absolutely do believe that offensive line does have an impact. I mean, we saw a good example of this, I think, is we look back to Clyde Edwards-Helaire, right? And you see a lot of people taking victory laps, being like, "Ah, ha, ha, see, like you can't value situation, you can't value that, you got to look at talent, blah blah blah." But really, I think how we missed there was not that we missed on the talent; it's that we missed on what we thought the situation would be. We thought the situation would be an incredibly high scoring ground offense with like a decent offensive line, but going into last season, I think even early on, I said, look, I don't think the Chiefs are the top landing spot. I think the Colts are the best landing spot because the offensive line and the Chiefs is pretty decimated. And I think you have a similar type of story here with the Steelers. Now, but you only like value that to a certain degree, right? Like you said, like at the end of the day, you want volume. Volume is king. So if Najee gets 250, 280 touches and, gets like, 50, 60 targets, that's running back one. That doesn't really matter, at that point, like what the O-line is, and they did make some improvements to O-line, but I think for me it's like it's a good spot on volume, it's a negative on O-line, so it turns out to be like a neutral to slightly positive, right? But the key is that they drafted him in the first round. I think that is the thing, because that's what's going to lead to the volume and the opportunity for Najee. So I'm not bumping him down, but I'm not like, holy crap, this is like the Godfather landing spot of all time. I thought I personally think like Miami could have been a better spot for him, and just equally good, where he would have a same 3-down workhorse role. But I think they have a better offensive line and potentially a better offense. We'll see what happens there. But I just, that's me. Like I think offensive line definitely matters, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter more than volume.
Yeah, and referencing Clyde Edwards-Helaire, what did he get? 210 combined touches last year. So I feel like that would be a bad turnout for what I expect for Najee.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
That,
I mean,
that would
he
be
got
like
hurt
worst.
too. He got hurt too. So, yeah.
I forgot. Yeah, he did. He's hurt. He started up 13 games. But Clyde Edwards-Helaire, that's a whole nother bag of worms. I think he's a good bounce back candidate. But any final comments on Najee? Let's say where is it negligible for him to fall in drafts? Okay, so. And where is it negligible for him to take him? So I saw him go today at 101 in a super flex. I was like, okay, that's negligence. But at the same time, that was what that guy did. So I'm kind of wondering, what are your thoughts? Like, what's too high and then what's too low for him?
Yeah, I mean, I was in a draft. I think someone took Najee at 1.01. He tried to trade back with me. I was at the 1.03. And I didn't trade because like I knew he wanted the running back. He didn't want to go Trevor Lawrence. But I don't think it's like he's a really good manager. Like he's one of the best managers I've played against. So I'm not going to say it's negligent. Some people, he's got stud quarterbacks and he just wanted another running back, and we have like an empire pot thing. So you really want to stack those wins like back to back when you can. So there are situations, right? I think, Najee's going to probably go in like the second round of startup drafts. And Trevor Lawrence is going to be in the first. Does that mean that, it's a negligent move? I don't think so. I mean, you could make a case depending on your team for a lot of these guys. Like I think you can't make a case for like, as much as I love him, Jamar Chase, because he's a wide receiver. But you could potentially make a case if someone wants to take that high risk maneuver. You can take him, but I got him at 1.08, which I thought was a steal. So I got him at a 1.08. I traded back from the 1.05 in a 14-team tight end premium, 2 PPR tight end premium, 0.25 points per carry, which is actually beneficial to workhorse running backs, obviously. But like I got him at the 1.08. I traded back from 1.05 to 1.08, and I landed him there because people took, I think, Etienne and Zach Wilson ahead. Which is understandable because the 14 team, so it's a little bit different. But
yeah, you got to be whenever you're in a bigger league like that. I have noticed too, it is much more take your guys in a couple of 14, 16 team leagues, and ADP is kind of out the window, quickly because everybody's team has very specific needs because you do have kind of a depleted roster. So it does make, and it is more of a get your guys kind of thing because everybody's rosters are thinner. It's a little bit tougher sometimes to move things around. I found. So, okay, let's segue into Travis Etienne. Okay. He lands with the Jaguars. He lands with, his old quarterback from Clemson. We got Urban Meyer. Everything's different for the Jaguars narratively, player wise, schematically. So what are you expecting from him this year? Kind of carry wise, touch wise, compared to like James Robinson? How do you see that playing out? And then similar question to what I asked about Harris. Where are you looking to take him in, super flex, tight end premium leagues? What's your kind of target zone area?
Yeah, I mean, I think Travis Etienne, same type of story where I feel like it's neutral because he got the first round draft capital, which is great. I don't think the landing spot is as good as people think because the more I hear and see from Urban Meyer, the more I feel like it's going to be a shit show. It's going to be one of those like college coaches coming in and just running it into the ground and maybe having like a nice spicy start. Maybe they go like 3-1 or something and then they don't win another game because I'm not sure that front office or Urban Meyer really knows what they're doing. If you look across the league, I really liked what happened with a lot of the young guys, right? Like Zach Wilson and the Jets. What did they do? They drafted O-line, they drafted wide receivers, they built around their young talent, right? And then you look at Tua. What did they do? They added a deep threat because they had no deep game. They have Will Fuller and they have Jalen Waddle now, right? And they added more O-line, right? And then you look at like Trey Lance again, just adding O-line. Right? These people, all these teams are adding pieces to build, either protect or elevate their young quarterback. And the Jaguars go out and they have 3 picks in the top 40, and you're obviously not going to mess up 1.01 and then mess up the other 2 by taking a running back and like a DB. And it's just like, and then they how many DBs they draft? They drafted a bunch, right? They drafted like 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And like when I look at that team, it's like, is that offense like an offense that doesn't need more talent? No. Like when you drafted Travis Etienne, like there was other talented wide receivers on the board. So I feel less confident about that offense. I think people are expecting Urban Meyer to come in and bring this bottom 3 offense into like, the top 10, and it's not happening. I think they're going to be another bottom 10 offense. So what you're going to get is Travis Etienne on a running back on a bottom 10 offense who doesn't really profile as a workhorse. I like the player a lot. He profiled as more of like a committee back, and I really wanted to see him land in like a San Francisco or like a higher scoring offense where he could like lead a committee there. But now you get him. Don't get me wrong, he's going to lead a committee. Like I don't think he's going to be a third down back. You don't draft a third down back in the first round. So that's pretty bogus. But I do think he's going to be part of a committee, and it kills James Robinson's value. But James Robinson's also going to, I think, eat into his value a little bit. And then you also have Laviska Shenault there, who's a hybrid, who's going to be running out of the backfield as well. So there's just I don't really know what this offense is going to look like, and I don't really have much faith in Urban Meyer. So for me, it's like I don't really love the landing spot, but like he got first round draft capital, and I like the talent, so it's like I'm not going to fade him because of it.
Fair. Yeah, and you're definitely onto something with the Urban Meyer. I mean, just we have so much history of the Jags organization just being, like you said, a shit show.
Mm-hmm.
The only reason that nobody really calls them out on it at this point is because Houston, the other biggest shit show in the NFL, really,
Yeah.
is in the same division. But yeah, I mean, they went from AFC Championship game to literally, like you said, I mean, number 1 overall pick, Urban
Yeah.
Meyer. So, and that's just in the span of what? I mean, not even 1,000 days,
Yeah.
So that's quite a feat for a team to do. So ETN, like you said, in the first round, when you hit on James Robinson as an undrafted free agent, to use a pick on ETN it's kind of folly. Unfortunately, we do like the skill set though. We love, last year coming out, he was going to be a top back. This year coming out, he's going to be a top back. And the one thing that I always try to remember about the NFL, and it's just so true, is nothing is set in stone. I mean, Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers, 2 of the guys you'd call pillars of the NFL this year, have been in serious trade, move situations. Deshaun Watson, we don't know what's going to happen. So this is the one thing that I like that's why I usually go with the talent. You know what I mean? Like ETN, maybe he doesn't pan out the first couple of weeks, but what happens when James Robinson rolls his ankle and then he gets 90% snap share or something like that? So this can change quickly. Yeah, and I agree with you. I don't want to fade him too much, but there is a little hesitancy there with that offense that I don't really know what its true identity is yet. I don't know if they know what it is either. So
Yeah, for sure.
all right. Third guy, another situational, ambiguity. Javonte Williams ends up in Denver, where we have Melvin Gordon, who is one of my favorite players in the NFL. He's one of my favorite fantasy players. There's a few players that I'd like just in love with. Melvin Gordon's one. Kirk Cousins is one. There's just guys that I just like. Melvin Gordon, I don't know if you follow him on Twitter. He's a great Twitter follow. He's hilarious.
Yeah, he's funny.
Yeah, he's just a real guy. But he gets Javonte Williams breathing down his neck. What are your thoughts on Javonte Williams? I feel like I'll put it this way. I have not been excited to get Javonte Williams. I have not been going out of my way to put him on my teams in the leagues that have been drafting today. And I feel like part of that is because I know what Melvin Gordon is, and I know he's going to be a problem. And he kind of always is a problem for guys. And I want I want return on investment this year if I'm going to take a running back in the first round. And I feel like he's, not going to get that. But what are your thoughts on Javonte Williams? Draft capital you're willing to spend on him and just kind of overall, trajectory?
So I mean, I thought Javonte was like a decent prospect, right? I think the hype got a little bit too much when people started coming out and saying he's like the top running back, or like, he's better than Etienne, he's better than Najee and all that stuff. I wasn't really there. But he's young. He shows some good traits in terms of his ability to break tackles. So there's no surprise why PFF loves him. That's like their mold, just like, somewhat athletic, like really tackle breaking college guy that can catch passes. I mean, that's the recipe, right? So, and it's no surprise that a lot of people follow that because a lot of people follow PFF, right? But for me, I think the hype got a little bit out of control. I was fine with him. I had him as my running back 3. I had him in a group with Etienne. I still preferred Etienne just because of what we've seen from Etienne so far in his career. But after the landing spot, like I like the draft capital. But again, you go back. I go back and I care about the teams they land on because it shows me how good of a decision maker they are. And Denver clearly cannot make decisions at all, right? You pass on a quarterback and decide to rock Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater for another year, and then you trade it up in the second round to draft a running back. I mean, those are just like two of the one of a couple of the worst decisions I saw in the draft. And I was floored that they didn't draft a quarterback. So now you got a Drew Lock led offense again, running it back with a mediocre O-line, right? And then on top of that, you got Melvin Gordon. And the problem with landing on a team Melvin Gordon is Melvin Gordon's proficient enough in the receiving game and proficient enough on the goal line for you to not really have any comfort of what this role for this running back's going to be. Like he's going to come in and be Phillip Lindsay. Like that's an outcome where he just goes in on first and second downs and catches a couple of passes and then bounces on the goal line, right? Or does he go in and get goal line work? Do they go 50-50 split on the goal line? Like as long as Melvin Gordon's there, like he's going to be a thorn in the side of every single fantasy manager. And I don't think people are really coming to terms with that. Like, I mean, you see a lot of stuff where it's like, dude, I don't care. Like, talent's going to win out here. Javonte is going to, win out and then put Melvin Gordon on the back. And, that might happen. Sure. Yeah, that's definitely, within the realm of possibility, but I'm not personally betting on it. I think, what's more likely is that Javonte goes out there and puts up like poor man's David Montgomery from year 1. And then a year from now, we're not that excited. And you're gonna get him. You're gonna basically get the David Montgomery treatment because I mean, honestly speaking, he's a David Montgomery. Like I compared this class. This class is very similar to 2019,
Yeah,
where you have like
Singletary, Sanders.
Yeah, you have like a film lover, Najee Harris. Every film person thinks he's a god, right? But he's got holes from the analytical side because of his age, because of his senior declare, because of all the stuff. And then you got a pretty athletic analytics darling that has some film questions and Travis Etienne, right? And then you got the PFF mold, semi-athletic guy that breaks a lot of tackles and catches passes in David Montgomery and Javonte Williams. Now, I think Javonte Williams is a little bit more athletic than David Montgomery, but not by that much, right? That they're both tackle breaking machines that catch passes. And then after that, you have a wasteland of running backs. So, it's very, very similar to that class. So when I look at Javonte and I look at the landing spot, I'm like not excited. And like I understand like the thought process of like, oh, talent wins out and always bet on talent. I think there's varying degrees to that. I think running back, because of the methodology and concept and belief that running backs do matter less and are heavily reliant on other factors. I think you have to take landing spot, and one of those other factors is landing spot, right? It captures a lot of those things. So I tend to weigh that a little bit more for the running back position than for a wide receiver, for example.
Yeah, and I mean that makes sense, especially we started these conversations off quickly addressing the teams these guys are attached to. Running backs, a good portion of their points, the good ones, their points come from touchdowns. How much touchdown equity is available on the Denver Broncos? How much touchdown equity is really available on this rookie quarterback, rookie NFL head coach led Jacksonville Jaguars? So you definitely have to take that stuff, like you said, factor in landing spot. You can be the best guy in the world, David Montgomery, but if you land on Chicago, led by Mitchell Trubisky, and guys who can't get out of their own way, you're just going to look like you're running in sand because, I mean, you're playing in sand. You're playing with guys that are playing in sand. So, all right, we are quickly going to take a break, and then we're going to come back and talk about the guy that I think we're going to have the most fun talking about, and that's going to be Trey Sermon. So, right back. What's good, IDP Army? It's Jordan Rains, and quickly I want to tell you guys today about the big project I've been working on, the Ultimate IDP Index. The Ultimate IDP Index is the #1 resource for IDP fantasy football players, rookies or veteran for 2021. Inside, you're going to find contract information, tiered IDP rankings, detailed player production profiles going back to 2017, suggested trade values, and a whole lot more, including unique write-ups, unique videos that will only be available within the Ultimate IDP Index. But to me, probably the most valuable thing is the fact that the trade value estimation tool is going to be updated weekly, so you'll always be aware of what a player is worth in your Dynasty League at any given moment. So what are you waiting for? Sign up for the IDP Army Patreon today. Patreon.com/the IDP Army. Join the Black Ops tier and join the IDP Army today. We're back. IDP Army, you know what to do. Go sign up for the Patreon. Mike's got a dope ass Patreon too. Patreon /our pack, right?
Yep. That's it.
Go get on Mike's Patreon, guys. Mike's the smartest guy in the biz. Besides, he's cream of the crop, baby. He's going to war with people on Twitter. Mike, let's take a break from the fantasy stuff. That's one of the reasons I like you, is because you're a pragmatic guy. I mean, you kind of just cut through the bullshit. I've been thinking a lot today about the difference between assholes and douchebags, and there's a big difference. Assholes are good guys. Douchebags suck. And so some people can't tell the difference. And I recognize you as someone who's like me, and I respect you. I love you. Like you said, one of the first times I ever remember interacting with you was we were going at it. But it was like I was not offended. I was not upset because of the way that you took what I was saying and you could spit it right back to me. And I was like, all right, this guy can hang. And it was just like, now I know I've seen you. Like, I know you can, I know you're real with this shit. So I appreciate you guys. Go support Mike. Support me. We're not corporate. We're not corporate yet. We might be big someday, but you guys get on the ground floor. This is ETH. This is 2015 right here. This is 2015 fantasy football. Get in early, okay? And then when 2020 rolls around in 2025, you'll have been here for it, okay? And don't cash out. Just hodl with us till you die. Fantasy football world, we got your back. All right, so let's talk Trey Sermon, okay? This guy, who had him #1 overall?
Matt Waldman.
There you go, bingo. Matt Waldman, #1 overall. That kind of blew my mind, but he's a trusted guy. I respect his opinion, so I definitely weighed that into this. He goes to Kyle Shanahan's offense. He gets 3rd round draft capital, right?
Yeah,
that's not
back
great.
As a 3rd.
Not the best in the world, but he ends up in a team that is known to play with committees, okay? And that's probably the best committee you can land on in the NFL. This team is on the up and up. We got 2 awesome wide receivers. We have George Kittle. Jimmy Garoppolo's bumming ass is getting the hell out of here. We got Trey Lance coming in, who is going 1, 2, or 3 in all of your drafts right now, because we all know what this is all about, okay? He's going somewhere that's going to have touchdown equity. He's going somewhere that knows going to how to use him. So, Mike, I saw you just not even 2 hours ago on Twitter, though, saying, hey, I'm going to read it. This is an exact quote from Mike. It says, "We've come full circle, reaching to the late first for questionable running backs again, and I am laughing in the 2nd round picks that I'm sitting on." So you are not a Trey Sermon in the late first guy. Explain to people why that is and why this may be a landmine after I just blew his ass up.
Yeah, I'm never someone that elevates running like mediocre running backs. Not to say mediocre running backs. We don't know, they haven't played, but mediocre profiles from pre-draft where I had him, which is like a late 2nd maybe, to the 1st round. That'll never happen because there's so many wide receivers in between that he has to leap that also have really good profiles and then ended up getting the draft capital that I expected them to or wanted them to. So there'd be no reason for me to do that. And this is like the trap like every single year, because here's what happens, right? You get into your draft, right? You're sitting there with the late first, the running backs fly off the board, right? And then you're sitting there, you're like, shit, I don't have running backs. So what do? All right, let me get the next best guy. And then you got Rondale Moore, you got Rashad Bateman, you got Elijah Moore, you got all of these guys who are potential studs that are just sitting there in the 2nd round, and people are like, nope, let me get Keyshawn Vaughn, let me get Devin Singletary, let me get AJ Dillon, let me get all these guys that you're probably going to drop in 2 to 3 years. And it's just a bad decision in my opinion. Like I've nothing against Trey Sermon. I think it could be good. When he got drafted, I said, hey, look, that's the best spot he could be in, because that committee is not the same as another committee, because that committee is going to run the ball like 450, 500 times. So, there's a lot more pie to eat. And, I'm not a film grinder. I'm a pro scout. I'm not a film grinder per se, but I'm
Yeah,
a
that's
pro
not what your
scout.
profile says. It
Yeah,
says
yeah.
you're a pro scout
It says I'm
here.
a pro scout, so I'm a pro scout. But I'll defer to Matt Waldman and all the other film grinders out there in terms of what he brings to the table there. But I just cannot fathom passing up on like first round, second round wide receivers who have really good profiles for a running back that has he might be good, but there's a lot of holes in his resume, right? Like, he couldn't really outproduce a lot of his teammates at Oklahoma. He had like 1 year, a couple games of flashes in his senior year. Like, these are not. He's not like hyper athletic. He's not like a Jonathan Taylor that's gonna like blow your socks off. He's got some athleticism. I mean, honestly, I think a lot of what's happening to Trey Sermon is just like propped up by his size, because it's like, yo, this is another 215-pound running back that has prototypical size, and maybe he'll be a 3-down workhorse back, and maybe he will be, right? But for every Trey Sermon, you got to know that there is a Devin Singletary and Keyshawn Vaughn out there waiting. I'm not saying he is Keyshawn Vaughn. I think he's better than Keyshawn Vaughn, but I'm not willing to make that bet when I have guys like Rondale Moore, Elijah Moore, etc. available. So there's no way I can fit him into the first round of a super flex draft. I would have to bend over literally 360 with my head up my ass in order to do that, and I can't do it.
Fair. What about Terence Marshall?
Terrence Marshall, dude. Yeah. So before the draft, I'm like, yo, I'm in on this guy because it makes sense like why he produced the way that he did. But like then I got a few red flags. So the first red flag was Ethan Turner. Shout out to him on Twitter. He's a PT guy. I don't know. Are they doctors? I don't know. Whatever. He's a PT guy.
He's a doctor of physical therapy.
Yeah. Whatever. So he's a doctor of physical something, but he knows what he's talking about. And he said that Terrace Marshall had probably the highest injury risk of everyone out of anyone in this rookie class. So that was scary to me, right? But that was one data point. I'm like, all right, I'm not gonna totally bomb him because of one data point. But then we get to the NFL draft, and all leading up to the NFL draft for like 2 months, what do we hear? Terrace Marshall's the first round wide receiver. Terrace Marshall's going in the first round. And then he falls all the way to the bottom of the second. And that's a second data point that tells me the only reason I can think of that, the reason why that happened, because think about the guy that's went ahead of him. Kadarius Toney, mind-boggling, obviously. Dwayne Eskridge, mind-boggling, right? Makes no sense. And these guys all went ahead of Terrace Marshall. So the only thing I can think of rationally is his medicals must have been brutal, right? Like there must be something on the medical side. The teams are like, like we cannot afford to like give up first round draft capital or even early second round draft capital for this guy. So for me, that's concerning because I don't really think of players as injury prone, but he has a very long history of injuries that do tend to repeat. So that's a really high risk. So, but in the late second, mid second, I'll fire that off because at that point I'm chasing upside, but I can't really justify taking him in the first round.
All right. So if you're in the second round, let's say you're 2-3 and Bateman's gone, Rondale's gone, Elijah Moore's gone, Terrence Mitchell and Trey Sermon are the two quote unquote best guys available. Who are you going to take?
That's a close one. I'm probably going to go Terrence Marshall low.
Terrence Marshall? Okay.
Yeah, because Terrence Marshall still has a decent profile as a wide receiver. But you can make the case Trey Sermon. Like I think literally like once you get out of the top 14, top 15 players, like everybody's got some holes, right? So you got to like take your pick of what holes you want to see. Personally, I find it's always it's been more fruitful to bet on wide receivers in that range because you're getting you tend to get like wide receivers that are first round talents in that range because people are reaching in the first round. So that's like my thought process. Like for today, literally today, one of my leagues, someone drafted Michael Carter in the first round, right? And Jalen Waddle on the board, Devonta Smith on the board, Rashad Bateman on the board. I'm just like, dude, people are drafting a fourth round running back over wide receiver, and that isn't just my league. Multiple people have posted on Twitter saying Michael Carter is jumping to the first round. And look, I get it; he's got great vision, but vision only takes you so far in the NFL. you still need draft capital and opportunity. And we can point to the Aaron Jones, but again, for every Aaron Jones, we have another 10 guys that we dropped off our roster. So for me, that's just the process I follow. I'm always looking for top end wide receivers in the late first. If you want to reach anywhere, like we talked about earlier, reach up top. Yeah, reach up top for Najee Harris. Reach up top for a Travis Etienne. Reach up top for even a Javonte Williams, even though I don't like him as much. But like, reach up top for one of those guys so you don't have to reach in the second, and you can get a good wide receiver that has the opportunity to ascend in value. We've seen it year in and year out, like Justin Jefferson, T. Higgins, Laviska Shenault, right? Like all these guys that you get in the late first, early second, you cannot pass those guys up for a questionable running back. And that's just my mantra of drafting in rookies.
Yeah, I love that. There you go, IDP Army. There's something you can take and apply immediately. If you're going to reach for a running back, do it on the top end of your drafts. Don't do it with those late first. Don't do it with those high seconds. That's where you're going to get, like you said, the T. Higginses, the Justin Jeffersons, the, knock on wood, the Brian Edwardses, Laviska Shenaults. Those guys are all second round picks from last year. That's where you're going to find your Elijah Moores, your Rondale Moores this year. So don't be shy to, just take some of those wide receivers that maybe aren't at the very tippy tip top of everybody's boards, because you're getting talent. And the only reason they dropped is because somebody else was ahead of them, just as in the narrative or whatever the boards were set up as. So I love that tidbit. So, all right, Trey Sermon, he's worth a second. Not a first, guys, okay? Don't go spend a first on Trey Sermon. That's pretty much what I'm taking away here. All right, let's talk a little bit about some guys that are already in the NFL really quickly before we get you out of here. I have a couple of polarizing running backs that I just wanted to get your quote-unquote takes on. Let's just start with Joe Mixon. He's a lightning rod of conversation and contention. Talk to me. What are your thoughts on Joe Mixon? How do you feel about Joe Mixon? Do you have him on a lot of dynasty rosters? Do you kind of avoid him, or what are you thinking about him going into 2021 as well?
I'm ready to be heard again about Joe Mixon. I'm ready. Bring it on. I every year I'm like, I'm gonna quit Joe Mixon this year, and then by draft season I'm like, nah, I've talked myself back into it. And the way I got there this year was, well, first of all, Joe Bernard got cut, but last year before he got hurt, we finally started seeing him getting involvement in the passing game. He's getting four targets a game, I think, during that stretch. And his scoring was very erratic, but I was paying attention to targets because that was my only question for Joe Mixon. Like, when are they going to involve this dude in the receiving game? Because he is a very top end receiver coming out of Oklahoma. That was one of his best traits, and for some reason they just never used him. They want to use Joe Bernard, who was a Jag. I don't care what anyone says. He was not better at Joe Mixon in the receiving game. It made absolutely zero sense. So now I'm hoping that this is a year that they can kind of do that. And I sound freaking irrational thinking about this, and the definition of insanity is like doing the same shit and hoping for a different result, right? And that's kind of what I'm doing here. But like that little slimmer of hope that I got from him in this season is kind of enough to carry me over. And then them dropping Bernard was kind of the cherry on top, and the coach came out and said he never wants Joe Mixon to come off the field. Now I'll believe it when I see it, but I think the beauty is like you're not really paying like first round, second round draft capital for Joe Mixon. He's fallen like a third round, sometimes fourth round. And at that time, at that price, like, you can't really pass that up, because he's still, even if it doesn't work out in the dream scenario that I'm thinking of, he's still getting 300 touches. You're not buying 300 touches like that late in the draft from anyone else with that level of talent. So I'm very, very much in on Joe Mixon. I already have him on a lot of my rosters. I've been a Joe Mixon stan, like I said, been hurt again many times. So I'm just going to keep carrying my rosters. And then, if I do any startups this year and he's there available that late, I'm just going to swing again and see what happens.
Yeah, that's the thing with him. That's kind of why I'm sort of coming in on him. He's at the price point now where I'm happy to take him. Round 3, he's kind of falling into that area because everybody's got wide receiver fever right now. But 2 years ago, I remember seeing people trade up into the first in Superflex to take Joe Mixon.
Mm-hmm.
That was like a thing that happened quite a bit. So the hype has always been around him. It's back again, but the price is finally at a point to where I think when I'm going to do a few more startups here in the upcoming weeks after I, get through all my rookies, because I have left a few dynasty leagues, and some of them just, some dynasty leagues just don't last forever. They just die. People move on, or people get mad, or things just happen. So I have a few spots to open up, and I think I'm going to be investing in Joe Mixon, and I'm going to get him at a good price. I'm kind of like you said, you have him on a lot of your rosters. I have a guy like that. My guy like that is Mike Evans, where I've just been
I got
getting
a
him
lot
on
of him
all.
too.
I have him
Yeah.
everywhere, and he's so dirt cheap right now. I'm just like, I wish I could buy him, but I've already got him on like every single team, and I'm getting him so many best ball drafts in like the 5th, 6th round. It's like unreal. So y'all go get you some Mike Evans. But okay, another guy that's kind of got some contention or some question marks or some polarization around him is Cam Akers. He seems to have moved his way up into the 1st round of Superflex startups. I haven't seen the DLF post of May's 1st round startups, but I know last month he was a 1st rounder. That kind of shocked me. It was similar to the situation last year when Miles Sanders was going in the 1st round of startups. What are your thoughts on Cam Akers? Do you think this is justified, or do you think we're really projecting too much hopefulness onto him, or what are your thoughts?
I mean, I've been leading the Cam Akers hype train since man, I don't know, since he was like a sophomore, probably. So I was big on him last year, and I remember having many debates on Twitter with folks who were telling me that Darrell Henderson was like an impediment. I was like, you guys are out of your mind. And it took him a while to get there because he got hurt and he's a rookie. But at the end of the season, you know, we kind of saw like what they want to do with the offense. So I'm all in on Cam Akers. Probably not at the 1st round draft capital. I think that's probably a bit too high for Superflex, even for me. So if that's really what it takes, I'm probably not in on that price. But what I find with these mock ADPs is most of the time they're not really accurate at all. So when you get into like real life scenarios and real ADPs, like you're going to see a lot of differences. But I do think he's worth a 2nd round startup pick. And you know, wherever like Najee is going and some of these other top sophomore running backs is where Cam Akers should be going. So I think he's a stud. The only question now is similar to Joe Mixon. You know, I tweeted this last year. It's like, man, are we going to be in store for like Cam Akers, Joe Mixon 2.0 treatment where he's just like a massive beast on the ground but doesn't get involved in the receiving game? I hope not, because Sean McVay had Todd Gurley and he saw what we did with Todd Gurley in the receiving game. So that's what I'm hopeful for. But I don't think he can swing in the 1st round, but I think a 2nd round is kind of like, you know, where it's at. Where all those like a lot of those young running backs going into the 2nd year, that's like the sweet spot of where to grab them, in my opinion.
Yeah, 2nd round I can definitely get behind. There's other guys I'd probably rather have, but I'm definitely not taking him as my like RB1. I'd probably even have Antonio Gibson over him. Personally, I need to do a deep dive on my offensive rankings soon. I've got some, but I haven't really refined them recently. All right, before we close this show out, I want to talk to you about one last guy who is kind of a contentious, questionable running back. He's a PFF favorite from 2019. We're talking Zack Moss. Was it 2019 or 2020?
2020. That was last
2020. All right, 2020. Zack Moss. Great offense. Okay. The Bills did not draft a running back.
Mm-hmm.
He was injured last year. I mean, he was playable when he played. I had him in a few lineups, but it was never, you know, they kind of abandoned the run, the Bills did. So that kind of hurt. But what are your thoughts on him this year? Do you think we're going to see him utilized more as a healthy guy and be more part of that offense? And if, you know, and lead that backfield and, you know, touches, carries, all that good stuff? Or how do you see this kind of shaking out between him and Devin Singletary?
Yeah, Zack Moss stinks. So he kind of, I mean, I've never been on Zack Moss, never understood why people aren't on Zack Moss. I mean, I understand why, because again, just goes to that PFF mold that people like to chase. But for me, like, there was just like really nothing that excited me about Zack Moss at any point in time. And then when he landed on the Buffalo Bills, I'm like, well, nice. You guys got 2 Jags in the backfield. They're going to play second fiddle to Josh Allen. And what happened? That's exactly what happened. And Josh Allen is still going to be the top running back. I was surprised they didn't take any running backs, honestly. I was surprised they didn't get any of that. I thought Chris Carson was going to go there, to be honest, in the offseason. So that didn't happen.
I love Chris Carson.
Yeah, but like, there's always next year, man. There's always next year they can sign freaking your boy Melvin Gordon. You know, when his contract's up, he'd be a good.
There we go.
Go in there and like, you know, pick up where, you know, Singletary and Zack Moss failed. And I have zero interest in Zack Moss. I have him on 0 teams. I didn't draft him last year. I'm probably not going to draft him again this year. From a dynasty perspective, like, he's usually a bad bet to bet on running backs that flop in year one. You know, you'll get the occasional Le'Veon Bells for sure, right? But those are not necessarily the types that I'm chasing. So for me, like Zack Moss is what he always was, man. He's a jag, and they faded the draft this year, but you're gonna be sweating bullets again the same time next year when they have more draft capital and they can take another shot, or you're gonna be sweating yourself again in free agency. You're gonna be sweating yourself again in the trade deadline. Like that's what happens when you draft jags on your team, and typically I don't do that. So yeah, I don't have really any interest in him.
Man, that was a scorcher on the dude, Zack Moss. Yeah, I'm not like big on him necessarily, but like I said, it's to me, it's one of those. It's the Bills' offense. If he is more healthy and he is getting more carries, I usually am flexing guys like Zack Moss over. I don't know who I would flex him over. Like he's Nyheim Hines, like just guys that you're just like, okay, there's a chance.
Yeah, I mean, I'll definitely take him over Nyheim Hines. Like if there's anything I hate more than jag running backs, it's like jag
pass catching running backs.
Scat backs. Those are the worst. So, I mean, I'll definitely take him over Nyheim Hines. At least Zack Moss can have a shot at leading committee. Nyheim Hines will never have that.
No,
but yeah, I mean, like personally, like I don't even like. I get it. Like we got to consider them for deep leagues, but even for deep leagues, like I'm like shooting for upside on value. Like I'm more for like shooting on guys that might not necessarily have as much value as them today, but I know there's a triggering event that's coming where I either know that I'm going to want them or I don't want them. Like, a good example of that is someone like a Rashad Penny, right? Like right now his value is much less than Zack Moss, right? But, a couple weeks in the season, we're going to know what he is. Like, is he just another 5-7 touch guy behind Chris Carson, or are they going to get back to, the when he was healthy for those few games and become more of like a 60-40 split where he's a little bit more explosive? So I prefer to hold those types of guys, whereas like a guy like Zack Moss, I'm just like, this guy is just not gonna be it for me. So
yeah,
that's kind of my approach when it comes to these things. When they come to like those end of bench roster spots, that's kind of how I'm thinking about it.
Fair, totally fair. And that's, you got to be, I mean, it's a cold game. You can't hold these guys forever, and they can only help you when they can help you. And then, put them on somebody else's team, let them get stuck holding that. Get your picks, your late picks, get your upside swings, get all those guys sorted out. Zack Moss is definitely a name that commands attention. I don't know if the value he has is necessarily there, as Mike has represented here for us, but he definitely commands attention being the lead back on a team that is surging right now. It does have a big fan base. There is something to be said. There is something to be said about teams with big fan bases. Like you were talking about Michael Carter. Look at the Jets. I mean, they're wild. I mean, there's a wild Jets fan in every league. He's not scared to take Michael Carter in the first if Zach Wilson's gone. You know, so there is that part of fantasy too. Zack Moss, somebody will take him off your hands. So if you have players like that have high team equity, not necessarily high fantasy equity, you can still move them for value. So that's definitely good. I guess that's a good ending point here for us. So, Mike, we kept it under an hour. I know you are tired. You've been grinding out for your Patreons and for your people, which I'm sure they appreciate. Guys, that's what this is. I mean, it's not just shit posting on Twitter. Some of us are really doing shit out here, working. And it's a good time. We learn, and that's why so people are like, oh, you guys are so you know what you're talking about, because when you're actually digging through it over and over and over, you're learning more information as that stuff stacks on top of itself. You're refining your opinion, and that's why you can engage with people in a manner where you can articulate why you think something is the way it is or isn't. And you can easily kind of vet who these people are that or know what they're talking about, have done the research, and guys who are just kind of regurgitating or recycling, the news cycle. We all know what podcasts come out on Monday. We all know who the big dogs are, and we all know the narratives that are out there. It's the people that are able to digest those narratives, filter them, and put them out in a different kind of fashion. That's when you really, somebody put a funny comment in here. That's when somebody's really doing the work. Moss is a tank. We'll see. So, Mike, tell the people where to find you, and I appreciate you coming on. And then I'll close this out of here and let you get some sleep, brother.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. Appreciate always appreciate good conversation with the folks in the community. Y'all can find me at on Twitter at Mike Me Up with 2 P's. Someone stole the one with 1 P, but I'm actually it's been growing on me, the 2 P's. So you can find me on there. You can find my YouTube and video content over on Bunk Bed Breakdowns, part of the BDG family with the homie Nick Ercolano, the founder over there. And then you can find me on Patreon, patreon.com /our pack. The Wolfpack Patreon got about 220 something people in there, and it's hype right now because it's draft season. So you get in there, you can see all the trades that I'm doing as I do them, the offers, I send them out live. You get my rankings, live updates on a monthly basis. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I'm at right now. So we'll see where we go from there.
Dope. All right, IDP Army, you know what to do. Go leave us a 5-star rating on your favorite podcasting platform. Hit the up button on the YouTubes. Hit the bell on the YouTube. Subscribe, like. We will have another episode coming soon. We're going to be jumping back into the IDP rookie rankings. I think that episode will be up sometime this week. So we're going to break down the top 10 IDP rookies. And then next week, we'll be jumping back in. We'll be doing all the rankings for all the IDP players. We'll go linebackers. We'll go defensive line. We'll go defensive backs for this upcoming season to get you guys some early rankings. And then we'll just keep the content rolling. So yeah, appreciate you coming on, Mike. IDP Army, appreciate y'all. You know what to do. So until next time.